Hi guys, welcome to the YouTube of Skinflowers. I am Luke, the guitarist, recording engineer and producer of the band, and we're going to start this new series off by looking at an in-depth production review of Unknown, and we'll be doing this with every track. We'll just go through a quick-ish rundown of all the production techniques and how we created the sounds that we did, and basically how we got the finished product. So with that all said, let's dive right in. So, to start off, we have the main guitar riff, and we've basically based the whole track around this, a bit like a call and response, but you'll hear that in the verses. But yeah, I just came up with this one day and thought that'd be a nice little riff to play around with. And obviously, at the start, you've got that ticking clock sound. That was an idea. It was originally a heart monitor. But we decided that the ticking clock would symbolise more kind of like the passing of time and death and stuff, which is, you know, all about death and the unknown afterwards and what happens to us after we die. So we basically got a sample. It's just a ticking clock. And then I added a faster one. Had to time stretch that a little bit, this one, to get it in time, but other than that, there you have it. And that basically goes over the first guitar riff, which I use all our guitar tones we get from Mixwave, and we get from the Mike Stringer of Spirit Box pack. You probably hear a lot of Spirit Box influences in our songs, and this is one of the reasons why we sound like we do, is because we're basically using their plugins. I have the preset telephone, which gives it a bit of an EQ that makes it sound more like it's coming through a telephone. Compare that to the normal tones, which would be now for that main tone, I like it a bit more beefy, so we went with, there's an Architect, I've called it an Architect's preset that I made just because it reminded me of guitars from Architect. You got a bit of drive on the front end of the amp, you know, not quite a bit of low end, you know, a bit of mid, not as much high, a bit of presence and resonance. The gain is at 6, and the cab, that is my setup for that. So literally not many effects on it at all. A little bit going to a reverb. Yep, nothing on the main rhythm guitar chain. As you can see, this is where this call and response. This call and response is here. So what we do have as well underneath that, I believe, would be Pat's part. Which are these? So there's actually two main guitar parts doing different things there. So that's pretty much the guitars. We do have a bit of kind of pad guitars going on, again using a lot of effects on there, mainly starting off with the Mike Stringer plugin, and that's a dotted ambient preset that we've got. So slightly more of a cleaner tone, kind of, not as heavy on the distortion on there. Cab's slightly different, but pretty much the same. And we do have an analog delay, dual delay, bit of feedback, quite a bit of depth, tones all the way high, and then that's going into a shimmer reverb. Not loads, you know, quite a bit of decay. And that for this one would sound like this. And then I'm blending that with another one that's got a little bit more gain on. Don't know why this keeps on going to control view, but here we go. Yeah, it's got a bit of drive on the front, a little bit more gain. Reverb we've got before the delay this time, and it's on a hall, a bit more wet on than dry, slightly higher decay, bit of a chorus effect going on, full mix, and then yeah, little lo-fi delay there, and that's more of a kind of higher, more gainy sound. And I wanted to blend those two, so it kind of has the cleanness and the high end of the first one, and then more distortion on the second one. The idea was to make it sound a bit more like a single guitar. And then we've got the reverse pad. So again, that's starting off. Pause that. I mean, that goes on forever. So we're starting off in a reverse delay. Lots of feedback, so it's basically an eternal feedback loop. Lots of wet, bit dry, and then that go into a reverb, a little shimmer, and then it hits the amp, and then with a little chorus at the end. And then the pad, I believe, is something similar. Basically, it's a big chorus, which is a very reverby tone, to be honest. Lots of wet, hardly any, in fact, basically no dry signal going through, and that creates atmospherics for most of the song, especially the verse. So altogether, you have. Yep, and that's basically kind of the atmospherics. A lot of it that I like to use in most of our songs, but this one in particular I had fun playing with. Do have, I think, a chorus version of all them as well. So you can hear the similarities there. Next, bass wise, so Jay obviously plays bass in these. Got a different tone on that one for the breakdown, but other than that, it's pretty much. Oh, that's why I've done that. That is bounced. That's why. Usually I use a parallax from Newell DSP. Otherwise, you've got this. It's one of my favourite plugins because what we used to do is create two tracks, one just low end, just the sub bass, and then another or just top end, EQ it all the low end out, and just put the distortion on that, because otherwise it'll just suck all the bass out of your tone if you try and just throw distortion straight on it. And this is a really good plugin that kind of just does it all anyway. It kind of does all that for you, and you can choose your drive, your compression of all the low and stuff, and or your low pass and whatever. And we just got it set roughly here. Nothing really done to the EQ. I do tend to play with some of the sounds later on down the line, some of the tunes, but this is how the setup is right now. A little bit of a gate, not much. What I do like to do though is I like to add in a bit of sub at the same time, just to flesh it out, just to literally fill in those lower frequencies, make it as full as possible. So for example, it'd be so it's very subtle, but it just fills out lower end. If you're wearing headphones, good headphones, you can really tell. It just fills out the space a bit more. Drums on this particular track. So we MIDI all our drums, but we, as you can see with the drum kit behind me, we always get Nathan's Performance. Because we just don't have the money to go into a real studio. That's just the sad fact of being a DIY band with no management or no studio backing. Do it all ourselves, but you can get some really, really good plugins these days. I mainly use, if you're wondering what WMB is, that's Watch Me Break kick. That's a kick I quite like to use that we honed in on the track Watch Me Break, which I will do a video on that at some point. But currently we have on this one, I think I've got a mixture of a couple of different drum kits. We've got the Modern and Massive by Get Good Drums, you know, bit of sub, the sum, you know, bit of room, not loads. Bit of EQ, kind of cutting some of the highs and the mids. I love this console EQ. That I cannot remember what fully that is doing actually. I know it's just getting a bit of cut, bit of boost in the low end. Got a nice tube EQ, which is kind of doing something similar. Adding a bit of low, tiny bit high. Yep. Then into a linear EQ that apparently isn't doing anything. A little bit of a noise gate, and then I always parallel compress my drums, so snare and kick especially. If anyone knows about parallel compression, you're just sending it to a compressor that is fully what I call crushed. You know, it's a high 5:1 ratio, very quick attack, and it just kind of squashes the drums down a bit and makes them just sound kind of like, it adds impact once you start blending it in, and we've blended it into about, it's about 1 dB. So for example, the drums would sound like this. Without this, so it kind of sounds like they're just getting louder, which they kind of are, but they're also adding, they're making the transients stand out more. I've got a bit of a heart kick. Basically want to replace, we make this like a heartbeat. That's where you got that from. Snare, I believe is, so this is from the Architect's drum kit, and that just has some really nice samples in it. And I think pretty much, yeah, everything else is from the Architect's pack. Yep. So snare doesn't need loads to it, doing to it. I really like the stuff by JST here. Joey Sturgis tunes, tones even. We've got this just emphasizes even more of the transients. So basically got a little bit of everything. No clip on the top end there, but yeah, just boosting those transients a little bit to make it a bit more punchy. So for example, a little bit of reverb as well, a little bit of high end and slight low end there on that. Tube EQ, a little bit of low, a little bit high again, and then yep, parallel compression, and then we are going into a bit of a drum reverb, which I have set as Valhalla Room. Quite like the Valhalla Room stuff. It's free and it does the job. It's great. I pretty much use that reverb for the rest of the drum kit. Toms, yeah, again, bit of tube EQ going on there. A little bit of gain, adding a bit of gain to them, and then a multipressor just to iron out some of the harsher frequencies. Again, only going a little bit into the parallel compression there, because I feel like sometimes it just makes it sound too harsh, and it really kind of makes the reverb tail last a long time, I find. So yeah, drums there. little bit of production stuff going on. So obviously, you know, the ticking clock. Got a bit of a riser. Nice riser there. And a sub sweep. Just a 40k sub sweep, which I recorded myself. You just loop it back to you on a sine wave, and you can find out what to do that on YouTube. I won't show you now because it'll take too long. And then a little boom. Right, so let's go for a little bit of vocals next. Verse and chorus. I like to stack all my things and group them where possible. So I've summed the chorus harmonies there. What have we got? Yeah, so I've got a lot going on here. I like to use a bit of Nectar sometimes, Nectar 3 for any pitch correction that we need. But to be honest, the DAW is that good that we don't hardly ever need to use it. A bit of EQ, cutting out the low end, touching up the sibilance there. A little bit of a multipressor again to kind of catch some of the low ends and the harshness and stuff. Not doing loads, but it's doing enough. Then it's going into this other JST plugin, Howard Benson vocals. It's quite nice. You can add a little grit. There's not really loads to it. There's a bit of de-essing going on, a little bit of compression, a bit of tube warmth. Not using the EQ because I like to use my own. Bit of a multiplier. So without everything on, this verse would sound like this. King believe, souls surround me. So just got a little bit of a multiplier, a little bit of a width going on, a bit of echo, and a little bit of a reverb. Quite a sizable room. Not much, only a little bit of echo as well. I kind of boost it a bit more echo wise and stuff for the choruses. Got a little Ghost Fox going on as well, which that just has the, where's the, there should be a lo-fi. Oh no, maybe not. I haven't put the lo-fi on, but you can do that. You can just hit this little lo-fi button and it'll kind of make it that telephone sound that the guitars had at the start. But I think as you can see, I've done that with the EQ here. Yeah, another multipressor, a bit of a gain to boost the volume a bit, and that delay as well. I've had to kind of chop bits up. I think automate it a bit. Yeah, automate it a bit there. So the actual word is lower, but then the reflections and the feedback is higher. Main chorus. We have pretty standard, kind of similar. A little bit more echo, a little bit more reverb size to the room, and how much wet signals go in there. Into the unknown. Then we've got the harmonies. Actually, I'll keep them muted because they're them. I've summed them. So we just got a low and a high going on really. Quad tracked, as you can see here. Panned, the usual, bog standard. And then the fun stuff for me, the screaming section. A lot of processing going on here, as there usually is with most screaming tracks that I've come across. I'm not as good as most, so I need all the help I can get, I'll be honest. So, standard main track. So, as you can see, yeah, quite a bit of compression on here, quite a bit of grit and de-essing going on, a little bit of EQing on here. Yeah, another multiplier width, quite a big room on the reverb, no delay or echo or anything like that, and this is what it would be sounding like without it. I can't seem to admit. Very dry, very raw, but with all the processing. I can't seem to admit. Standard stuff when you're doing screams, in my opinion. Got a bit of a compressor on the end as well to control it. Not much, just a little 1.7 there. And then I'll do a double as well. This will have a bit more distortion on, just kind of beef it up a bit. I can't seem to admit. Just beefs it up, you know, a bit of distortion, a bit of gravel, standard tricks. And then on this one, just to help me out, get the low ends. I'm not quite mastered false chord screaming, unfortunately. I've just added a little -12 octave. Again, a bit of a trick again, industry trick, just that kind of demonic vocal thing going on. And yeah, so that would all basically sound like this. I can't seem to admit. And there you go, that's pretty much how I do my screams. I've only got one on the end there, just to complement what the vocals are doing, because I didn't want to overdo it. And then, as Adara is such an accomplished piano player, we do have some piano-based things going on in the choruses. Very nice addition at the end. We tend to add them either at the end or see what we need to complement the track. And then what we've got processing wise on there. So that one's got a bit more EQ than the others. The others are pretty, you know, take a bit of the low end out, get a bit more of the sparkle on there. That one, a lot of low end and a bit more sparkle. Going into a bit of a tape delay, a little bit of feedback, not loads. I've actually put it into another reverb I quite like is the Joey Stage Tones Skybox. Very nice reverb, just the cloud reverb there. Tone all the way up there, but a bit of decay, not loads. You know, 40% mix, a little bit of pre-delay, so you get the transients of those notes straight away. Let's see what that would sound like. Apologies for the popping audio, it's probably my slow processor, but that's what that's doing there. Again, you know, a bit of tape delay going on, like I said, a bit of gain, and then that is going into, I think that's going into, yeah, that's just going into a standard Logic Prince Hall 1 reverb. Same for that one as well, a little bit of tape delay, a couple of bits of compressors to handle the velocities of each of the notes. Quite heavy-handed we can be, because we just wanted that kind of, almost as if you were slamming down the piano, that kind of sound. And other than that, there's not loads else going on. It's a pretty bog standard track. I mean, I say this with what we got, 77 tracks. It's not bad. Yeah, that's pretty much Unknown as it is. There we go. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Please like and subscribe and all that if you like these videos. If you want more of them, let us know in the comment section. And yeah, we'll be doing more of these as and when we can. Not sure which track next, but maybe Phantom, or if there's a certain one you want, bag it in the comments and we'll do that next. Popular vote wins. Democracy. Anyway, thank you very much. See you next time.